It is 3 o'clock here on a Tuesday afternoon, and welcome to Queen City News Plus Live. Live from the Blue Room, we got anchor Brian Blakely, along with Derek Dellinger, anchor here at Queen City News in charge of digital, and meteorologist Brandon Loss going to talk about that chilly weather that's been warming up a little bit today. And also our producer-director, Austin McCollum, running the show over there. And Derek, I want to start out first off with the main story that we've been talking about for a week now. That's Minnesota protesters and Border Patrol agents. They continue to clash nearly a week after that Border Patrol agent shot a 37-year-old woman today, as we're taking a look at live pictures of more clashes.
Yes, officers have dropped tear gas and sprayed eye irritant among some of the protesters that have been happening there. Two mayors are right now asking the federal courts in Minnesota to suspend the immigration operation, basically on the grounds of First Amendment issues. There's still an indication as to no indication yet as to whether or not there's going to actually be a court date for that, at least so far. But you might remember with some of these other immigration crackdowns that have happened across the country, they have kind of sort of effectively been stopped by some of the court action that has been happening as of late. Now, we should note that there have been quite a few things that have been happening over the past few days as well. The authorities are saying 2,000 people have been arrested in Minnesota so far in this immigration crackdown that has happened there. But you might also know that these protests are not only in response to the immigration crackdown, but also that shooting of Renee Good that also happened last week.
Yeah, and the Department of Homeland Security pledging to send 2,000 more immigration officers to Minnesota. The Trump administration has repeatedly defended the immigration agent who shot Good, saying they acted in self-defense, but that explanation has been widely panned by Mayor Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, also Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and based on a lot of the videos that we've seen out there. And also today, there are two Democratic lawmakers from Massachusetts announced today, they're sponsoring a bill to make it easier for people to sue and overcome immunity objections of federal officers who are accused of violating civil rights. Really it's a largely symbolic type of bill that introduced today because it's Republican-controlled Congress. It's not really going to go very far.
Yes, there's also a new poll out from The Economist and YouGov that found 46% of people either strongly or somewhat supported abolishing ICE in response to the shooting that happened with Renee Good. 43% opposed, 12% were unsure, but this kind of goes to show that there is still this increasing back and forth, not only in Minnesota, but also nationwide, about the feelings in regards to what they believe is happening in Minnesota, but also what's been happening nationwide with this immigration crackdown. Other big story happening today is in Iran, where you can see right there President Donald Trump basically saying that he wants the Iran protests to be continuing within the country. This is coming as the death toll is now past 2,000 from these protests that have been happening in Iran, which is basically started over the collapse of the currency, the economy that's been going on there. And the protests have also kind of been targeting the government there as of lately, which is basically a religiously based government that's been in place since 1979.
Yeah, and you just talked about it. We just talked about it yesterday. Yeah. It was 500 people plus that had died, and it's gone now to more than 2,000. We're getting a little bit more information out of Iran today as well, because it's been largely a blackout there as they have knocked out the internet to stop that. But lots of people are getting out phone calls right now. Letting us a little bit more about what's going on. And we also know that there are burned out government buildings, smashed ATMs, and a lot of those protests that the Iranian leaders are saying that it is sparked by the U.S., and they're chanting death to the U.S., death to Trump, death to Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. So there's a lot of unrest that is happening right now that Iranian leaders are blaming on the U.S. for stoking this. And will that continue? That remains to be seen right now.
Not only blaming the U.S., but also blaming Israel as well. As you mentioned, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been a part of that. We should also mention as well that as we are getting more information, we are learning more about what's happening with the phone lines becoming back open in the country. There's more stories coming out about what exactly is happening. But one of the things that's kind of out there is a published report. We were saying just a little bit earlier that there were reports of at least 2,000 people dead. There are some reports out there that are still working to be verified that it is around 10 times that. So we need to basically at least let you know about that as that develops, because there could be a whole lot more that could be coming out.
And we understand there are some diplomatic relations that are going on between the U.S. right now. Trump has his Swiss Army knife of diplomats, Steve Witkoff, that is talking with Iranian leaders right there. But but whether there goes anywhere, we'll have to see over the next few days as it's escalating. And Trump has hinted that more could be coming, and we're not really sure whether that could be in the form of some sort of military action. That's something we're going to keep watching. Back here in the United States, we're also looking at the case today in Washington. Chairman of the Republican-led House Oversight Committee said the panel will move forward with contempt of Congress proceedings against former President Bill Clinton because he failed to appear for that subpoena, the deposition today, in regards to the Jeffrey Epstein case.
Yes, it should be mentioned though that both the former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, they are saying that the House probe was, and I quote here, legally invalid, and that they would be forcefully defending themselves. Primarily, they are saying that this is because there have been other witnesses, other officials that have been able to present written testimony to the committee that's looking into this. Now, James Comer, who was the head of this committee, he's basically saying right now, like, hey, we're not accusing anybody of any wrongdoing. We just want to know what was going on with as far as the relationship and the extent of any wrongdoing. They're not saying that the Clintons themselves did any wrongdoing, but they do acknowledge that there was this long friendship that the Clintons did have with Jeffrey Epstein.
As we saw about a lot of the pictures that were released in the first tranche of the documents related to the Epstein case back in December. With the Clintons being pictured there along with many other people, they want to talk to the Clintons about that.
Yeah, we should mention Bill Clinton has never been accused of any wrongdoing in these circumstances, especially with some of the information that has been released so far. No indication of any wrongdoing on the former president. But there is also belief too, and some of this has been discussed here as far as whether or not, even if the Clintons did show up, if they did show up, whether or not this would be more political theater and basically with some of the questions that would be asked back and forth.
And that's what the Clintons, they released a 4-page letter today basically saying as such, this is, to use a term that President Trump uses, a witch hunt in some ways. We've given you a lot of the information that we do have, which is very little, and you have not been able to do what you're not doing what we've asked you to do, or we're not going to go appear in court for this. And also, there is a history of people that have been sent to jail for contempt of court, most notably Peter Navarro from the Trump administration, and also Steve Bannon, who served prison time.
Let's stay in D.C. right now and talk about the Pentagon. They are actually going to be making use of the Grok AI engine, who you might remember from Twitter or X, as it's called these days. Also, they're going to be making use of Google's AI engine in their Pentagon network. Now, you might be wondering, hey, what's the big deal here, or why is this news? Well, there are concerns around security involving artificial intelligence on a secure military network, or for that matter, the unsecured parts of the military network within the Pentagon. Now, has also been a lot of controversy as of late, especially with Grok, because of its ability to
generate highly sexualized deepfake images, and it's been banned in several countries around the world right now because of that independent. It's not having an independent online. And we security that it does have.
Yeah, we should mention these deep fake images without people's consent too.
Yeah. So that's they're basically it's Pentagon pushing all in and the chips all in here for Grok, and Elon Musk obviously owns that program there, and so we'll see what they're going to do. Is fully integrating that as part for their military data and developing that technology.
Yes, this is due to be implemented starting later this month. And Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, he announced that he would make, and I quote, all appropriate data from the military's IT systems available for AI exploitation. He also said data from intelligence databases will be fed into the system. He says mainly that this is part of basically a step towards the innovation that he says needs to come within the department. But there are also some concerns because the Biden administration basically set along some guidelines for implementation of
security issues.
Yeah, that it needs to be kind of slowly rolled out because they still need to figure out exactly the limits of the AI technology, but also to make sure that people's rights were not being violated in the process. That was kind of a Biden administration thing, but there's not an indication yet whether or not the Trump administration would actually be following that.
A big story, too, that has been here in Charlotte that we're following. More coming out today about the Sycamore Brewing. We know that Sarah Taylor has taken ownership of the company, and she's filing for divorce from Justin Brigham, who was charged for the rape of a 13-year-old girl last year. It's been a huge story here in Charlotte. Now we're understanding a little bit more about the divorce that is happening, and she is wanting, following that divorce, filing those papers yesterday. She's also wanting custody of her children.
Yes.
So, and Sycamore Brewing obviously going through a rebrand, a lot of other issues that have happened in the fallout from whatever, from the Justin Brigham case from a month ago.
Yes, and it's hard to believe it's been around a month, since this all happened, because it's like we started talking about this once it happened because of the allegations that came out of Stanley County about Brigham being caught naked in a bedroom with a 13-year-old and basically being later caught naked inside of a car, allegedly, by
communicating online through
in Stanley County,
Snapchat.
yes, in Stanley County, and that has led to not only the boycott against Sycamore Brewing, but also the tap room to close because of the boycott and because of some of the controversy surrounding it. Sarah Taylor, we should mention, has basically since with the series of statements, basically said not only is Brigham not only no longer a part of Sycamore, that there were the divorce proceedings, but now this custody, and we can presume here it's not going to be much of a battle because Brigham right now is still in jail over these charges.
Yeah, he is being held on $11+ million bond right now on these charges, and investigators are looking into possible more charges, which is another shoe possibly to drop that we're following here in Queen City News. But certainly a tragic case. As Sycamore Brewing is trying to rebrand and move on. They filed for their new name last week under Club West Brewing. We'll see where that goes coming up. Let's get to the weather right now and bring in meteorologist Brandon Lawson as we look outside right now. Sunny Tuesday afternoon, as you can see right there, and also chilly, but not as chilly as it was yesterday.
Yeah, I was out just a little bit earlier this afternoon. It couldn't help but notice only a few clouds when I was in northern Mecklenburg County and around Iredell County, but I noticed more clouds coming into Charlotte as I was making my way down 77, and that was it was still cool out there. It was a nice cool though too.
I was gonna say, Derek, you hit the nail on the head. We do have clouds building into the area. Those will be building in as we go into tonight and early tomorrow morning. And it is a seasonally warmer day today. Temperatures are about 7 to 13 degrees warmer compared to what we were at this time yesterday. So that lands our high temperatures really right around the mid to upper 50s. So it is going to be a warmer day today. Right now, we've got 58 in Charlotte, 59 in Monroe, 61 in Sherrall. We're up into the upper 40s and low 50s towards the mountains. So definitely a considerably warmer day compared to what we saw yesterday. But here comes some of those clouds. Derek was just talking about it. Those clouds are really moving in from the northwest. A lot of high clouds at first. This is probably going to lead to a pretty nice sunset tonight. So if you thought last night's sunset was incredible, this one's probably going to be even nicer because we're going to have a lot of scattering of light as that sun is setting due to some of those high thin cirrus clouds blending in here as we go through the evening. Now, this is coming in from a boundary. We've got a boundary that's going to be moving in really as we go into your Wednesday afternoon and continuing through early Thursday. So low temperatures tonight due to the clouds will not be as colder. We're looking at mid to upper 30s across much of the region. You'll actually feel it not be as colder tomorrow. It'll still be cold enough for the coat, don't get me wrong, but we're not going to be in the mid to upper 20s, and we won't have to worry about frost in the morning either. So what are we tracking here? We're looking at warmer air today, but bitter cold is going to be making a return later this week, and we're also watching trends for maybe some snow late this week and into the weekend, and that's something that we're continuing to keep an eye on. Some of the latest short-range model data suggesting we could see some flurries around Charlotte on Thursday morning, but no reason to get too excited yet. There's a lot of factors that are really hindering that forecast, and we'll be talking about that coming up here, guys.
What?
In a little bit.
Snow.
Yeah.
Snow.
What?
Mountains are going to love that. Ski resorts are going to need it after it had a good start, but then had a little bit of a dry spell there for a while.
Right. It's been a very warm January, especially for those ski resorts, so they could use anything they can get.
We have a heck of a story that's going to be coming up here in just a couple moments. You may remember that crash that happened in midair in D.C. last year. It involved the family of an American figure skater. The skater survived. It was not necessarily on the plane at the time, but there is some news that, shall we say, might warm your heart about this skater that is coming up. The details, that is next. This is Queen City News Plus Live. 3:16. This is Queen City News Plus Live as we take a live look from our Arlington camera in Uptown. You can see some light clouds up around the area there. We'll have your look at your 7-day forecast coming up in just a couple of minutes with Brandon. We do want to get back to some of the other news of the day, though. Is some action happening at the Supreme Court involving Some trans athlete laws. There's been some news about that over the past couple of years about some some states passing laws that would basically ban trans women athletes from competing in sports. This was essentially taken up at the Supreme Court today.
Yeah, a couple of oral arguments. Oral arguments were heard in a couple of big cases today in front of the justices, and now the nation's highest court is going to determine whether the sports ban violates the Title IX, prohibits sex-based discrimination in schools. 27 states have laws banning transgender youth participating in youth sports, including North Carolina. And these two laws they're looking at today, one is in West Virginia, one is in Idaho. Both of the lawyers here, whatever came out after court today, and they appeared on the steps of the Supreme Court. And Josh Block, who argued against the state-level transgender bans in front of the justices, he says what's at issue is this case is fair treatment of people, including cis people and trans people, while John Birch from the Alliance for Defending Freedom, a conservative Christian legal advocacy group, says seemed encouraged by today's hearing and what he heard from the justices. And he said it means a lot that the other side has to tell the court not to define sex in order to win this case.
Now, what's being discussed here are also two specific cases. I think one is in Idaho and the other is in West Virginia.
Idaho and West Virginia.
Yeah, yes. And lower courts have ruled for the trans athletes in these situations in the past, which has resulted in these appeals up to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court justices, it is a conservative majority. They are basically giving an indication, not necessarily saying explicitly, but within some of their questioning, and with some of the way they're framing some of their arguments, that they will basically be overturning some of these lower court decisions and basically saying, hey, that these laws, these anti-trans athlete laws, do not violate Title IX. The liberal justices, they were venturing towards a ruling that would allow the individual athletes involved in these cases to be allowed to compete. We should also mention here, too, because it is worth noting here, the number of trans athletes that are out there that are competing, it is a very, very, very low number.
Small.
And
small.
in fact, if I'm not mistaken, here in North Carolina, I think it's in the single digits. But these laws have come as a result of a lot of one could say it's a culture war argument that has been made, and that's why a lot of these states have decided to pass these laws. But it's something that is of note, and it's basically something else that's part of the culture that's going to the Supreme Court.
And after hearing those oral arguments, we do expect the Supreme Court to make its decision on this sometime late spring, early summer regarding this. The other story that you were teasing a little bit before the first for our first break there, and that is a wonderful story from tragedy that happened with Maxime Namoff making the U.S. men's national Olympic figure skating team to go to Italy coming up next month. And he lost both of his parents in that D.C. plane crash. They were both figure skaters, and he lost that plane crash last January of 2025. So it's great to see him really kind of overcome this. He's gone through a lot of personal tragedy professionally after whatever happened, but he's a highly decorated skater, and now he's going to be going to the Olympics, which anybody who's ever seen these stories, Derek, this is fantastic when you do get to go to the Olympics, and then his story on top of whatever happened with his parents, it's even gretter.
Yeah, first off, it's hard to believe it's been a year already since that happened. But
we did that live. I remember doing that live on Queen City News at 10.
Yeah, but also his parents, we should note, they were famous figure skaters, and they were also well-known coaches as well. They helped coach him, and Namoff, he had questioned whether or not he was actually going to be continuing to do this after his parents died in the crash. He did take up the mantle though, and did it and qualified for the team. And basically, the Nationals were basically saying, "Hey, and you did an impressive job." And it's his ability more than it was his story.
Yeah.
But his story will probably grab a lot of people's hearts, especially once the Winter Olympic comes around.
It's one of the great things about the Olympics. You always hear these incredible stories that they have in the backstories, and you're right, his story, considering what he's had to go through, of the people that were killed, that Charlotte-based flight crew that was killed at an American Airlines flight involving the Black Hawk helicopter. The other story back here in Charlotte that we're also tracking from South Carolina to Charlotte, it started back in Fort Worth, Texas, are the Buddhist monks that are walking cross country. They're making their way into South Carolina today. They'll be in Charlotte on Thursday.
Yes, this video, I believe, is from Saluda, South Carolina, which is just south of Columbia. They are due in Charlotte on Thursday. We should mention that very specifically. And as you can see from some of the video here, they have drawn crowds along the way since they started in Texas, and it's an encouraging sight to see. And it's also it's a walk for peace that's happening, and it's something you don't see every day, which is part of the reason I think that
Why
all
they
those
did it.
people have come out there.
Yeah, promoting peace and love and hope and humanity. And salute there, our Queen City News storyteller John Lee did the story.
Yeah.
They're in Great Falls last night. They're walking up to Rock Hill today, up to US 21, and they're going to be in the Rock Hill tonight, and they're going to be in Charlotte on Thursday. So a lot of folks have reached out to me, say, "How can I go see?" I want to go see the Buddhist monks. That's not something to see every day. Of course, they have a great message and a great tradition. From thousands and thousands of years.
And we do not have their exact route.
No, not for Thursday, but we do from today.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so we'll let you know over the next couple of days once we get something a little bit more concrete as far as where exactly.
And better
they'll be
weather
going.
to walk today, as a matter of fact, because it's
Yeah.
a little better as far as not so cold as it was yesterday, even though it woke up a little cold. But yeah, we've got another Arctic blast, as you can see, coming this week. So it's been one big roller coaster after the warm weather we had this weekend. And now,
Well, at least on Saturday.
Yeah, at least on Saturday, right? Meteorologist Brandon Lawson joining us right now to talk a little bit more about also possible snow in the forecast.
Yeah,
that surprised me a little bit.
It's always a possibility, but it rarely happens for us here in
Well,
Charlotte.
at least in Charlotte, maybe
Yeah.
Boone, maybe Lenore, maybe
The
Hickory.
The mountains
But, yeah.
definitely going to be seeing at least imaginable snow, but even for the mountains, the snowfall is trending on the downwards range when it comes down to snow totals. Now, this is what's happening. So we've got a system to our west. Notice satellite radar. Those clouds are all over the upper Midwest, the Ohio Valley, into the Great Lakes region. Now, those clouds are headed our way as we go through the evening and overnight tonight. You'll see those clouds mixing in really nicely with the sunset here in a few hours. Now, high temperatures today and tomorrow are really going to be in the mid to upper 50s. We'll call it seasonably warm for this time of year. Tomorrow, definitely going to be a little bit more cloudier. It's also going to be more windy. So if you're taking your pick on when you should get outdoors, I would do it today versus tomorrow. Now, Thursday, a complete turnaround of the weather. 30s on Thursday, 30s and 40s on Friday, a brief warm-up for Saturday, and then Sunday and Monday, we're back in the 30s and 40s again. So it is going to get much colder later this weekend as we head into the weekend. That's the main thing I want you to take away from this forecast. Cold air, not really snow per se. We're looking at 39 degrees, the high temperature in Charlotte on Thursday, 21 in Boone, but probably going to feel much colder than that when you factor in the wind chills. Friday morning, everybody's going to be waking up in the teens. Charlotte, Gastonia, Lincoln, Hickory, Sherrill, this includes you as well, down towards the Sandhills. Teens across the board, the mountains, possibly waking up in the upper single digits Friday morning. Again, here come the clouds, here comes that system. Here's a look at Futurecast showing you how all this develops. So the forecast shows the clouds moving in tomorrow. I think we're dry for the better half of tomorrow, but I won't rule out a raindrop or two here and there. Notice as we go into Wednesday evening, that looks like a lot of rain there over Charlotte, but I think there's going to be a lot of drier air at the surface. I mean, we might have some what's called virga, rain not reaching the ground, but there could be some rain popping up on your Pinpoint Weather app tomorrow, the radar, so just keep an eye on that. Snow does blend into the mountains Wednesday night and a Thursday morning to tomorrow night. Thursday morning, here comes some of that precipitation. Now look at what happens Thursday morning. This is the short-range model data here that we just got in from the HER model, and it's right. It ran this morning. It's trying to hint at maybe a few flurries Thursday morning. But I want to point out there is going to be a lot of dry air with this system. Dry air that could really eat away at any precipitation chances. This would mainly be along and south and east of I-85. Now, this wouldn't create any issues on the roads, but it could lead to some flurries as we get out the door Thursday morning. And obviously flurries, cold weather, definitely not a good combination, especially if it's not even going to stick. So the bottom line, what's the trend? Systems are trending drier. A big storm is unlikely at this time, not just for Thursday, but also for the system this weekend. Looks unlikely we'll see a big snowstorm. However, we can still see a few flakes, some flurries, and maybe a little bit of lighter snowfall accumulation for the mountains, but a major winter storm looking very unlikely at this time. We need rain. Drought monitor showing level 2 out of 3 and level 3 out of 5 drought over much of the region. We're waking up tomorrow morning, not as cold in the 30s, mid-50s tomorrow, and then as we go into Thursday, Arctic blast moves in. We'll monitor trends, guys. Right now, other than flurries, a few flakes, we're not looking at anything too impactful.
You know, you said something that it's always the I-85 corridor, that little demarcation line. Usually it's north of there. You're saying it's going to be south of there where we're going to see some flurries.
Yeah. It all depends. It's all about where that cold air and moisture is phasing together, guys. So we've got the cold air coming in from the northwest. We've got the moisture coming in from the southeast. And that is combining together right along I-85, and that's why we call that phasing meteorology. All that has to kind of line up well, and that phasing never really works out perfectly here in Charlotte, and that's why it's so hard to get snow.
Okay. We'll be back right after this. This is Queen City News Plus Live. Well, for those of you who have taken an interest in hockey lately, you might be aware of some of the fighting that happens during those games, and especially a kids' hockey game. This apparently was a thing. This happened during a Hershey Bears game. I think this was in Pennsylvania. This happened over the weekend. Apparently the intermission segment took a violent turn. The players, aged under 8, they began fighting each other.
Wow. I mean, they've been watching their big brothers and everyone else fight too much. But boy, went to a game. What is it? Went to a game and a hockey match broke out? Or
yeah, and this was not supposed to happen. In fact, the intermission game was not sanctioned by USA Hockey or the Atlantic Amateur Hockey Association.
I bet there's a lot of parents that are very upset about that.
And there's an internal review on it right now, exactly on why that happened. That will do it for us for this Tuesday. See you tomorrow here on Queen City News Plus Live.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.